to talk a little bit about something that I'm sure you guys have heard a little bit about as of recent, which is our Damascus community. And Ms. Wright, it's interesting because I think that one of the things that you highlighted in your presentation is extremely important that gives me some thought, which is the main reason why you open up master plans is because you're looking to achieve some sort of positive sort of growth or influence. The interesting dynamic is that what I've heard from some members of the Damascus community is that they don't view any development as positive. And so from that perspective, it's an interesting conundrum, one in which when you look at the Damascus master plan in its own right, and it spells out and says specifically that it's looking at affordable housing options and senior housing options, but also marrying that with the integrity of keeping Damascus in a rural sense as a community. It's something that, again, doesn't speak to the revitalization of the town center. Because if you don't have development, much as I've told my folks in Montgomery Village, when it comes to redeveloping and helping to spur that sort of development. But, you know, and at the same time, I don't want to disrespect the people who invested a lot of time in this plan back in 2006, members of the community who came out and gave of their time. The question is whether or not, and because this plan is still so young, the ability for us to go in and sort of relook at Damascus and figure out if it makes sense for us to continue along those lines makes sense. And so I'm curious to hear what your thoughts might be on that.
Thank you. I know that we've had 2 development projects, I think, in Damascus since the plan was adopted in 2006, I believe. It's a young plan. It hasn't been around for a while, and there hasn't been a lot of implementation of the plan. But I think that the plan that was approved, and it did involve a very big community outreach effort, a community advisory committee. There were folks who, again, we haven't used as many CACs in our current planning, but there was a CAC for Damascus. And those decisions that came out were really, I think, as you mentioned, that they wanted to stay a small town, but they also wanted to revitalize their town center. They wanted to provide some particularly senior housing, some affordable housing for folks in the community who are getting elderly, who might want to move from single-family homes into the town center, and that it was not in any way, shape, or form a goal to create an urban center of any sort. That was clear throughout the Damascus master plan. This was intended to be a small town. And we've had 2 projects that have come in, one that had 84 units and has been reviewed by the board, and one that's coming up that has, I believe, about 40 to 50 units. I can't remember the exact number, somewhere in that range. And that's been it in all of Damascus for the last 10 years or so. And, you know, I think that again, that scale is probably what was anticipated in the plan, but it probably isn't even quite as much progress as was hoped for in the plan in order to really make the town center more cohesive, to support the businesses that are in that existing town center, which has historically been a retail center for that part of the region. So in terms of reopening the plan, I would actually, number one, say that I think that the plan that we did was a good one. If the goal to reopen it would be to go back and downzone existing properties. I don't really understand what the planning rationale for doing that would be, because the zones that were applied are actually very moderate. If we're saying in the last 10 years it's generated like 120 new units total, that's very moderate. And I don't know what the outcome of reopening the plan would be, except perhaps to get property owners coming in and lobbying for higher density than they currently have as an incentive to achieve all these goals of, supporting the town center and so forth. I'm not saying we would support that, but it would be, again, I think a difficult discussion, because property owners see when a plan is opened as an opportunity to increase incentives, while I think the community there is saying they would like to downzone properties. I honestly think the plan that we did 10 years ago or so got it pretty much just right, and it's implementing out very, very slowly. So,
Well, thank you for that. I think that, again, you lay out some very good points that are there to consider, and ones in which I've spoken to my Damascus community and wouldn't necessarily say warn them, but wanted to make them aware of some of the challenges that always come about when it comes to the consideration of opening a master plan. In that there will be people who will ask for additional density, not just people who might say that they want to downzone. The question is that also with the efficacy of the plan in terms of not being able to produce where we wanted it to be, whether or not it's worthy of reconsidering the plan as well. And so that's one of the things that, if our goal was to try to make the town center become revitalized, and I'm sure that some of our businesses in that area might have something to say about this as well in terms of where they are. This is going to be something, and this is what I've told some of the community advocates, this isn't just about them. This is about every single person in the Damascus community, those that are business owners, those that are property owners, those that are individual homeowners, all coming together to figure out what's going to work best for them. And so from that perspective, I'm just a little curious as to what your thoughts might be.
well, I agree with you that if we are asked to enter into a discussion of reopening the Damascus plan and getting into those issues, we are going to need to be reaching out to everyone in the Damascus community, including business owners and individual homeowners and property owners, the underlying property owners. And I think it would be a very long and detailed discussion. I don't know where we would end up. I don't know if there is consensus that can be built in some of these issues. I think the thing that concerns me most, honestly, and this is a county-wide perspective, is that Damascus is not an area where we are really looking for huge amounts of growth. We are hoping to focus growth in areas like the Grosvenor Minor Master Plan Amendment, which is right on top of a metro, as was discussed, and we have limited staff resources within the planning department. I don't expect to get any more staff as part of the budget process this year. I'm going to be happy to keep the staff I have. I do worry about spending a lot of staff time to possibly downzone an area, or maybe argue about downzoning or upzoning an area like Damascus that will take staff time and energy away from some of the other plans where we are actually have a potential to generate positive change in areas where we want to see that growth and change happen. So Damascus is a great community. I'm not trying to minimize, the importance of Damascus. It is a great community. It had a very thorough planning process. and a plan that involved a lot of citizens, and it was approved. And out of that, again, over the last 10 years, there have been about 120 new units approved, and none built, 0 built. This is just what's gone through the regulatory process. So it has not been a hotbed of growth, and I would hate to get into a debate about whether it should be downzoned or become more of a hotbed for growth, which is, I think, what the debate would end up being.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I hate to put too fine a point on it, but this is about the controversy in Damascus is about 2 development projects, one of which has been approved, for better or for worse. I believe that it was 100% in conformity with the letter and spirit of the master plan. But as the case may be, it's done. It's approved and presumably will be constructed. There's one other project that we have on the planning board agenda, I think, for next week. And it's unlike the other project, it's not a affordable housing project, but otherwise somewhat has some similarities. And I think that with respect to those who dislike those projects, who have reasons for objecting to them, I think it would be very troubling to reopen an entire area master plan because of 2 projects that have happened over the course of 10 years. That's quite a significant undertaking, whether you like those projects or you don't like those projects. The scope of the resources and energy that all of us, you and us and our staffs, would devote to this enterprise, all in service of, I'm not sure what the end product would be. I have a feeling that there would be a very strong push from some property owners to get more. And I'm not saying I would support that, but I think that it would be quite a contentious process for not really very much one way or the other as far as development potential is concerned, either on the upside or the downside.
Well, I appreciate those comments. Let me just say that from my perspective, it's always been one, and I know Ms. Michelson sat with me as I met with some of the community members, and we espoused some of those same concerns, in that I haven't seen a master plan yet to where property owners are coming in and saying, please downzone my property. I've only been on this council for 6 years now, but in that 6-year time frame, I've never seen that. I'm sure folks who have been on there for much longer have never seen that as well. And so from that perspective, that's an assumption that's pretty much 100% in terms of coming to fruition. I think that one of the things that lends me and gives me great pause in terms of making an actual motion that we put Damascus on the master plan process is something that Director Wright said that I hadn't considered before, which is the timing aspect with regards to the election cycle. Because the reality is that anything that we do would not likely come before a new council is seated. In 2019. Out of respect for my colleagues, I certainly would not be advocating for putting Damascus before any of the projects that currently are in the plan and have significant impacts in terms of our total community as a whole. So from that perspective, while it's certainly something that I think in terms of some of the members of the community want, the reality is that it coming to fruition would not happen until earliest, most likely 2019. And so from that perspective, me asking to bind the council for something that should best be served by having the new members of the council, whoever they may be, and making that kind of decision as to how to move forward, I think is probably best at this point. So I really appreciate the dialogue and kind of flushing this out to help me make my decision. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Leventhal.
Thank you. That was a very interesting colloquy, and I think it points out some of the questions that I hope the planning board will articulate with the